Welcome to Recruit and Retain, cultivating the next generation of conveyancing talent as part of National Conveyancing Week. Hosting us today, we have Stephen Ward, the Director of Strategy and External Relations at CLC. He is joined by Karen Buckley, a People and Culture Director at Movera, Janine Wellington, Managing Director at Convey Law, and last but not least, Katrina Lamont, Chief of Legal Operations at Montpellier.
We're looking today at recruitment and retention, which are, significant issues in the conveyancing industry, and cultivating the next generation of conveyancing talent. And we've got some great speakers today, as have already been introduced in the intro. And we're going to go through some questions, and you can put questions in the chat as well. We'll be delighted to hear from you. Karen, perhaps I could start with you, and before we go into the questions, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about Movera and your role there.
So I'm People and Culture Director here at Movera. I've been with the firm since April last year, so still relatively new and new to the sector. Not very new to HR, I have to say, but definitely new to legal services and conveyancing in particular. At Movera, we are trying to disrupt the market. We're trying to, build more positive experience for home movers in terms of our people, our partners, and our clients. We're using technology in the way that we go about doing that, trying to kind of streamline, build efficiencies. Movera is a brand with a number of brands that sit underneath it: OMP Solicitors, CLG Law. We've also got Cal Conveyancing Alliance. And we're trying to, as I said, disrupt the home buying sector.
Great. Well, thank you very much. So you'll have very particular insight, I think, into the particular challenges that we've got in this sector and ways that we might tackle them. So I'll come back to you in a second. Okay. But Janine, you're at a large conveyancing practice. Tell us a bit about your role in the practice.
Okay, so I'm currently Managing Director of Convey Law. Have only been in that post for 2 short months, was previously a legal director within the company for almost 3 years. But actually, I rejoined Convey Law around 3 years ago. I was with them around 12 years ago. So I went off and did my merry thing. I wanted to become a partner in a traditional kind of high street firm, and corporate commercial property was kind of my bag at that point. But very much decided a couple of years ago that fee earning was no longer for me, and that I had other skills that I wanted to sort of put into practice, which was management, training, etc. So came back to Convey Law and now basically oversee the company, work very closely with our operations director and our board. And that covers our conveyancers, our assistants, risk and compliance, our background teams. And again, we're there. We like to promote revolutionary conveyancing. We work hard with our IT systems. We have a sister company as well, Convey 365, that very much works on case management systems and portals. But actually, even with all that in mind and streamlining processes and making conveyancing easier, as Karen's kind of pointed out already, that doesn't fill the people gap. And I think this is probably one of the reasons why we're sat here talking as we are, because even we might have the best IT tech in the world, but actually we will always need conveyancers who have the appropriate knowledge to be able to transact a conveyance from start to finish, providing that excellent client service that we all promote.
Thank you both. So we're going to get some very interesting different perspectives, I think, from each of you. And Janine, I'll just carry on with you, if I may, because I think, as you've hinted there, this is a very people-centric industry. It's a service industry, obviously, but it's dealing with people who are going through stressful, exciting, sometimes sad moments in their lives, sometimes frustrating moments in their lives. And so you need a particular blend of skills. What's the challenge in recruiting the right sorts of people to conveyancing for you at the moment?
There's a number of challenges. I think the first one is the group that we have available. There has certainly been a downsize in the number of candidates that are out there, but more importantly, those that are either qualified or qualified by experience. And what we are finding is that even though that group is smaller, we are enjoying a CV, we like a CV. What we do to challenge that CV is that we send that candidate on a little conveyancing test, and that's a little bit academic, it's a little bit practical. So it's, what do you know about land law? How do you apply that in the transaction? And then some practical questions. And what we discover is, unfortunately, the result of that test is quite different to what that CV promotes. So somebody may have experience for 3 years, but for example, that person may have only had experience, as I'm finding, in freehold title. They've been pigeonholed, so they've only ever dealt with freehold. They've dipped their toes into a little bit of leasehold. They've not heard of new build or shared ownership. So we're limited. So even though we have those candidates that are holding themselves out to be conveyancers, they're not well-rounded, and that's what we're finding. It's that group of that well-rounded. And that's just the start, the academic bit and the practical bit and knowing how to transact from A to Z. But then they also have to have the requisite client management, file management. It's very difficult finding those candidates that are going to fit in without spending an awful lot of time, perhaps training them. And those that could join us immediately and take on a full caseload. It's almost, it's becoming more and more difficult. So we've really tightened up on our recruitment process, because we were finding that we had been employing conveyancers, especially after COVID, when the demand was there and you had the stamp duty changes again a few years back. But we got it wrong a little bit, because actually we were employing people that we thought fitted the bill, but actually they just didn't. So we've really tightened up on who we employ at Convey Law. And also we look at the culture as well. Will they fit our culture? And we do a lot of work with that, mostly about working with Convey Law now is about belonging and feeling part of that. It's the Kaizen approach. We want everybody to invest on providing ideas if they have them. And it's the foot soldiers on the ground that we look to provide those ideas. It's not necessarily the board of directors who are not there day to day using our systems, using our IT, speaking to the clients, speaking to the introducers. So it takes a person to work for us. And we are finding that, unfortunately, as I said, that group, it's quite difficult. Because the numbers are just not there to start with.
Yeah. And that's what I hear from a lot of practices as well, that getting the people with the right blend of the technical skills and experience and the softer skills is really, really challenging. There's huge competition for them. Hi, well, I'm pleased to say that we've been joined by another panelist, Katrina from Montpellier Legal. Katrina, thanks for being able to join us. Could you just tell us, as the other panelists already have, a little bit about Montpellier Legal and yourself, your role there?
Yes, so I'm Chief of Legal Operations at Montpellier Legal. So I head up all of our legal teams and the recruitment of our lawyers. Montpellier Legal is obviously just a conveyancing firm. We have several offices across Gloucestershire and in Worcester as well now, and one in London too. So our main focus is obviously just conveyancing. We are specialists in that area only. So we are very in tune with trying to get our top talent, people that fit our culture is really, really important for us. And how we retain that talent as well is really important.
That's really interesting, because before you joined, Janine was just talking about the sort of cultural fit and getting people really bought into the business aims and standards of delivery and so on. So I'm sure that's a theme we'll come back to, actually. So thanks very much for joining us. But I was going to ask Karen now. Obviously, you're new to the sector, fairly new to the sector, but with a long experience in HR and people management. What are your observations joining the sector about what surprised you, or what was perhaps very familiar as well?
I think my background is professional services, so I've worked a lot of my career in accountancy, and I came into Movera thinking that it would feel the same. the politics of working in partnerships, for example, the politics of that kind of professional services environment. And I've been really refreshingly surprised at just how friendly our culture is here, how everybody seems to be, heading for the same goal. We've just done our recent engagement survey, and for the second time in 6 months, our people have described our culture as friendly, inclusive and supportive, which I think is really positive. And for us, that's one of the reasons, one of the ways we're trying to kind of stand out in what is undoubtedly a competitive marketplace. It's trying to build that employee value proposition, build that compelling culture so that people who are, looking for roles, want to walk towards us, and people who are still here, we want to retain, engage and develop them. And that's a real kind of focus for us in terms of how we build and start to hopefully separate ourselves out from the competition in what is a very challenging market.
That's interesting. Katrina, how does Montpellier go about setting itself apart in a very competitive market? It's sort of a conveyancers market at the moment, isn't it, when they're looking for jobs?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is twofold. We have our training and development focus, as well as our cultural and support of the staff. So we make sure that all of our lawyers, they come in with a professional development plan, and that can be anyone at assistant level all the way up to senior associate. We appreciate that lots of people have these goals in life that they want to achieve, and how we can support them through technical training as well as managerial training. So I think there is an expectation with lawyers as they grow and develop in a firm, they will be managing their own teams, and often that can fall by the wayside when you're focusing on just the technical attributes. So we do support management training too, as well as making sure that all of our staff feel very supported in running training sessions both internally and externally. We want them to join in our success as well. So we always have really great socials, but also run bonus systems on targets, which are quarterly rather than annually. So we can get those quick hits. We find that especially the younger generation, as they come through, they are wanting things quicker than necessarily previous generations before. So those really long-term 10-year plans might be much shorter. So it's how we keep developing those through, and how we can engage the staff as they go through their careers.
Yeah. And Karen, is that something you found as well with the people that you've been recruiting, that they're kind of impatient to progress?
Yeah, and I don't think that's unique to this sector at all. I think it's, new generations coming through are impatient to progress, and that's something that we are looking to address within Movera, not only for the people that we want to attract into the business, but also the people we have, currently employed by us. We want to give people rewarding kind of career pathways. We want to give people kind of options for professional development. We've recently launched a professional qualification strategy, so we're offering professional qualifications in CLC, SILEX, and the route to qualification as a solicitor as well. Predominantly through kind of levying the apprenticeship levy, and giving people the opportunity to put forward business cases to get themselves onto those kind of pathways. But for us, there's a bit of a mix. We've got some long-standing people with good tenure who haven't got those qualifications, and I think it's about trying to have that balanced approach. There's something for everybody, and there's a lot to be said for people who have been working in the sector for a long time, and the experience and knowledge that they bring. We've got some good tenure within our employees, and we're getting good results. Our Trustpilot scores are 4.7. Our NPS scores are in the 70s. So our clients and customers are thinking that we're doing a good thing too, which is all really positive.
And it's great to be able to have that kind of objective feedback. That's very motivational for teams as well, isn't it? When they can see the impact of what they're doing, I think. I want to come back to what you were saying there, which is very interesting about qualification and routes to qualification and growing your own, because that's the big theme of this. But before, I just wonder whether anyone would be happy to talk about how the competition for talent. I've even heard it described as the war for talent, but this is conveyancing, and we're all very supportive of each other. So let's stick with competition for talent is affecting the sector and perhaps your businesses and how you operate and what you're able to do and grow and so on. Who would like to jump in?
Someone gave me a stat the other day around, I think there's been a 15% fall in the number of conveyancers in England and Wales since 2021. And also, Indeed are reporting there's a 111% increase in available kind of vacancies for conveyancers in the last 12 months. When I talk to our head of recruitment and talent, she's telling us that, actually it's not a very active market at the moment. So all of us are trying to tap those passive candidates in terms of trying to get them to turn their heads. And think differently about how we look at things, and we're all facing that challenge, aren't we? About the a market which is very reactive to interest rate changes or government initiatives, and suddenly we're having peaks, and the next minute we're having troughs in terms of the number of instructions that are coming through. So all of that, I think, creates a challenge in terms of how do you resource effectively without over-resourcing to cope with a peak, and then having to kind of actively look at change programs to balance out for the troughs, but create that midpoint. And I think as a business, what we've done is invest in experience around MI and data, and experience about capacity and resource planning as well, so that we can be really clear about what we need, what those numbers look like. And we think about pulling different levers around pricing, so that we are managing the volume of work that's coming through when we are, not struggling, but really kind of looking at that kind of competition for talent. And I think at the moment our resourcing teams are looking at how do we build our brand awareness? How do we, get our name out there, so that at the time that the market starts to turn, hopefully, and people are becoming more active from a candidate point of view, they are, we're front of mind and we're an attractive proposition for them. At the same time, managing our workloads and making sure we're not putting our people under undue pressure. And with March looming, we're very cognizant of that. We were bitten last time from a stamp duty point of view. I think we made some mistakes in terms of the pressure our people were under, and we're very keen that doesn't happen again. And there's a real focus for us on well-being, on balance, on making sure that we're not asking too much of the people that we've got on board. So for me, it's kind of a multi-pronged approach to trying to kind of pull lots of different levers to try and achieve that right balance.
I think that's the case for us all. I think everything that you've just highlighted there is exactly the same for us at Convey Law, really. It's a great starting salary. A lot of them look for that as an immediate, it's monthly bonuses. We pay ours monthly against KPIs, of course. It's that sense of belonging, that culture. It's the well-being. It's the support professionally and personally. We have a training pathway also, and it's flexible working options, and it's hybrid, remote. That 9 till 5 is really gone out of the door, and I think anybody who expects to recruit on that basis is not going to do that well, really. And it's actually wanting to make them work for you, not the other way around. Ultimately we want them to come to Convey Law because they want to work for us. It's a whole host of everything that's already been said.
Katrina, similar for Montpellier, is there anything sort of?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the protection of people's well-being is really, really important, especially when we come into busier periods. Looking at like case volumes and capacity is something that we're always reflecting on, and how we can implement the best tech to support. So all the sort of manual data entry tasks are taken off the plate of the conveyancer, so they can really focus on the technical aspects of that. So that for us is a real focus and how we can move forward. I also think that obviously the support that the staff get, it does filter out. So in terms of recruitment, we've got such a focus on making sure that our teams are so well engaged with what we're doing here that they become a great advocate for Montpellier Legal. So how we end up recruiting is a lot of the time, that we're dealing with people on the other side of transactions. They see how quick things are moving, how happy and friendly the staff are. They're getting out there and they're kind of spreading that good word for us, because it is really difficult when you're going to recruiters and asking, do you have a really great solicitor on your books? A lot of them are usually embedded already with a firm. They might have trained with that firm and qualified with that firm, and then they have this tied in loyalty, which we completely appreciate. But there's also this idea that conveyancing needs to be one way, and it can be very draconian sometimes in the practices, and there isn't a better way of doing things. And this is just how it is. It's long hours and all this pressure. You're going to be running 200 files by yourself, and that's just not how it is anymore. So sometimes it's about challenging those beliefs. And we put everyone here in a team, so they're well supported with paralegals and assistants, so they can actually focus on what they're skilled and trained to do, rather than all the opening up new files, dealing with post completions. We try and separate it out so people are focused on the talents that they can bring to the firm.
Great. So very competitive. And you touched on there that where somebody qualifies and where they get their experience can really shape the way they think about conveyancing forever. And fitting into new cultures could be difficult. That brings us on to this key point about the benefits of growing your own through offering training. And Karen, you were talking about bringing people who are interested through the different routes, and you named all of the routes there that are on offer. What's the interest from unqualified conveyancers at the moment for achieving qualification? And what do you think are the benefits of growing your own? I make them sound like sprouts, but you know what I mean.
I think organic growth. Yeah, organic growth is imperative, for lots of reasons. And there is a big desire to become qualified by most of our experienced conveyancers. If they're not, I suppose the restrictions are time. If they have their own caseload, it's very difficult to study outside of those working hours. And I've seen, the modules for all of those regulators that you can become qualified under. And, that's very difficult. But ultimately it's cost as well. But we will pay at Convey Law if somebody wants to qualify under anyone to do that. And actually, when I think of all of our conveyancing managers now who are experienced conveyancers, they all started at Convey Law many years ago, either in the post room or the welcome pack team, and then made assistants. And now actually they're heading up a cohort of other conveyancers. But a lot of those are still not formally qualified. They don't have that qualification. And they're probably the ones that are less inclined to go out and get that, whether that's because they're of a certain age now or whether I don't really know, but I think there is certainly a desire for most of our youngsters to qualify. They want that title. They want to be able to say, I'm qualified. And obviously it takes them into a different salary bracket as well. It doesn't prevent moving forward at Convey Law whether you're qualified or not. We've had directors that are not qualified conveyancers, but qualified by experience previously. That's not the case now, but it has been. But I think there is certainly the desire by the majority of our younger conveyancers to become qualified. And we put them on the Convey Law kind of training pathway, which coincides with the majority of CLC or SILEX to get them there. So, but yeah, I think it's definitely there. And as I said earlier, it's certainly qualification for me fills in those missing gaps of somebody that is experienced just by being experienced. As we know, property law falls into so many other areas of law. You've got the law of contract obligations, you've got family law, Matrimonial Causes Act, you've got private client law, wills and estate. You have to have a general understanding of how it all works and how it all falls in together. And without that foundational knowledge by somebody who's perhaps just done conveyancing for 10 years and not had any training in the background, they miss that. And that's where I find the gaps are.
Well, you'd expect me as a regulator to say that I encourage everybody to become qualified, and it's good for a firm to have a higher proportion of qualified lawyers and so on, and reduce the gearing and so on. But there are other benefits too, Karen, and to what extent do you need to encourage staff to get qualification, or to what extent is it a demand that you're sort of managing?
I think there's a bit of both. I think we've got busy people, but busy people who have career aspirations. And one of the things that people are asking about is more clarity around career pathways. And we're putting in place a career framework to provide that clarity. We're also kind of growing our own in our own way anyway, because we're not just looking for kind of experienced, conveyancers. We're also bringing trainees in as a route through to grow our own people. So we offer for, at entry level, we have 8-week training academy to get people trained up in terms of not only our systems, but also the processes and that sits behind each of those transactions. They then spend 8 weeks in kind of a supported team before they go into team. And we do the same with experienced hires, but on a much shorter basis, because obviously you've got the technical know-how, but we're trying to do things differently. Our systems are different, and sometimes we have to unpick a little bit of that knowledge. So we've got our own kind of academy, and then on top of that, we layer that with the professional qualifications. And I think, growing your own, it takes time, to build the right quality, to kind of create that route to competence. It is a long-term investment, and it's not cheap. But actually, I think there's real benefits from doing that in terms of loyalty, in terms of tenure, in terms of, people kind of spending their careers with us. And we do have some, decent levels of tenure across the business. And I think that, even if people leave the business, and that's going to be inevitable from time to time, we've got decent levels of attrition, but as people leave, we want them to be talking positively about Movera in the marketplace. And our ambition is that people are coming towards us because they've heard good things rather than what we're telling them, so to speak, in terms of that word of mouth. So, have we cracked it? Probably not yet quite, but I think we're well positioned. We're seeing the right appetite. Candidates coming to us wanting to understand about how they could qualify, and I think there is a real mix. To Janine's point, we've got people who aren't qualified, who are doing a really good job for us. Some of our strongest players, are technically unqualified but have a lot of experience, which creates that. And I think that mixed bag presents quite a compelling kind of package for us, so to speak.
And Katrina, Karen touched on there that in a business like this, you're not just after qualified lawyers, and there's a lot of people skills that are needed, and that those softer skills, and some people can then become lawyers, but the important thing is that they start out with that. Is that something that you look for when you're looking for new recruits?
Absolutely, especially at our entry level, we're looking for people who've got really great customer service, who just know how to interact with members of the public. It is a skill unto itself, and it's really important that our clients feel really confident and secure with what we're offering. And part of that is our communication, how we communicate over phone or email or even face-to-face in person. We do encourage our clients, if they want to come see us in the office, and absolutely can do in an online firm. So that's all part of the parcel. But likewise, it is the mixture that we get. So we have our teams that are supervised, often by qualified lawyers, but we have junior staff, the paralegals and the assistants who are up and coming. If they want to go on those courses, we have a number of them doing licensed conveyancing, SILEX, SQE, and also a solicitor's apprentice as well we've got at the moment. So all routes and all pathways are available. And we do try and encourage our staff that alongside their training on the job training, if they want to get those professional qualifications, they can do as well. It all sits very much hand in hand. And I think at the moment we have 10 staff that are on those pathways to qualification, which is really important for us. In the long term, in the next 2 to 5 years, they'll all be coming up to qualification, running their own teams, and guiding our junior staff that are coming in.
That's great. And do you find that people that you've trained are more loyal to the business? Do they tend to stick around longer?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Montpellier Legal's only been running for 3 years, but previously the firm that we used to work at, and when a group of us joined together here, we've all stuck together because of that loyalty, and it's been really important for us that we invest our time and our money into the staff, and they do pay it back in dividends, really, because they want to be here, they want to be part of something that if you invest in your talent, they do give it back to you as well.
And something that's interested me is that the apprenticeship routes haven't taken off perhaps as quickly as everybody. I mean, by everybody, I mean the governments who introduced them and all of us in the sector and people in education, as much as we'd hoped or expected, because they attract funding, they're great for fitting around the working day and things like that. But you both mentioned apprentices in the business. Do you think this is something that now we can expect to grow? The CLC, for example, we've just revised our apprenticeship standards, and they're now available. And SILEX have an apprenticeship, and there's a solicitor's apprenticeship route as well. Do you think we can expect to see more of that? How could we encourage practices to consider the apprenticeship route to qualification?
So I think there's been a lack of sort of awareness that this is an option in many ways. So I had my staff bring it to me as an option, which was great. So, you know, that we could get on board with that. I'm happy to look at any sort of route to qualification that might be a little bit more unknown, so that we can see how we can implement that in the business. But I think ultimately there is a query around funding, and with new budgets and stuff coming in from the government, whether or not those level 7 apprenticeships are going to be cut. So I think that naturally has caused a bit of more guarded approach as to whether or not we promote these and move them forward. And, you know, it's something that we're definitely reviewing constantly. Where we can offer the apprenticeships with the funding, then we will do. But it is something to consider, you know, if it's something that's going to be cut in the future, how that's going to impact businesses and our staff moving forward.
I think as well, traditionally with the apprenticeship route, the 20% kind of off-the-job learning, so to speak, in terms of, you know, people look at that and think, oh, you know, that's a real barrier because I've got to have, you know, people either, you know, the leadership teams are thinking that there's somebody out a day a week, and the individual's thinking, oh, I can't possibly manage my caseload and then take a day out to do that. Whereas actually, you know, there's a misconception that is a day spent away from the desk kind of learning. You know, it's understanding that actually you can apply the job as you are doing it. To kind of tick the box for the learning requirements. So I think the more that we can kind of speak about that, the more we can kind of raise that awareness. It's madness not to take advantage of the apprenticeship levy. We're all paying into it, and if we don't use it, we will lose it. But yeah, to Katrina's point, you know, there's a big watch on, you know, what's going to happen next with the new government, and, you know, any changes that will be made, and we're all kind of waiting with bated breath to see how we need to react to that.
Yeah, great. So a bit of demystification to do, and encouragement, because you say while the levy is there and while the funding is available, it's kind of bad not to use it. Sorry, Janine.
No. I haven't had any experience with apprenticeship, so I'm probably not best placed to make any comment on it. But perhaps that's the answer to your question, really, in that we've not had much traction for it at all. So within Convey law.
Yeah. Well, I think they're particularly valuable because they've been created by the industry as well. The standards are always created by experts working in the industry, so they're particularly neat. So that's good. Well, before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to say about the particular way that you're recruiting and retaining talent that you think others watching this call could learn from? Oh, sorry, I'll put you on the spot, Janine.
I don't think there's anything more to add other than, you know, you when you see it, you have to grab it, as in the talent, but what is really important is that you have to retain it. And I think, as we've all said, well-being is huge in 2025, and I can't see that going away. Neither do we want it to go away. You know, support has to be there from us professionally, personally, and we have to have training pathways to develop that organic growth, and to give candidates a chance, even though they might not be that perfection that you're looking for at the very beginning, and spend some time with them in order to develop into your culture to be able to retain them. I think it's just really important that, you know, you are attractive to them as much as you are to them effectively. So.
I think that's key. I think for me, recruitment is always a two-way process. You know, it's not just us checking have people got the experience and skills that we are looking for. It's about what are we offering for them, and it's those compelling, rewarding, ambitious career pathways. It's remunerating people in the right way. It's paying the right salaries and benchmarking them. We've all got bonus schemes in place. But for me, it's about, you know, what's it like to what's it feel like to work here? How do we create that compelling kind of employee value proposition that will make people turn their head and want to walk towards us, but also make people here not want to kind of look over and think, oh, might the grass be greener over there? Well, no, we don't want you to turn your head. Keep looking at us, because we're listening, and we are changing and adapting and growing and building that culture as we speak. And that's really important to us.
Yeah. Katrina, is there anything else?
I think for us, it's very much about not just what you sell at interview, but it's what you put into practice every day. That management of your team is so important, so critical to not forget about individuals, and to continue reviewing each person as they are, and where they are in their development and what they need to get to the next level, to keep that talent, so if they don't disappear to go somewhere else because they've been forgotten about.
That's great. Thank you all very much. I think from my point of view, there's a sort of a lot of gloom spoken about this issue. And I even meet some conveyancers say, well, we won't need conveyancers in the future because everything's being digitized. And I couldn't disagree more, because although the digitalization will help streamline processes and tidy up some of the grunt work and make accuracy perhaps easier, we're still absolutely going to depend on people with great legal and people skills to engage with the client, understand what their needs are, and advise them effectively. And I think for that to continue to be available, it's really important that we'll work together as a sector to bring on that, identify and bring on that new talent wherever it comes from and whatever route it comes through. So thank you all very much for your time today. And I hope those watching at home or in their offices or in their home offices have found this useful. And it's part of an ongoing conversation that we'll all continue to have as an industry. So thank you all very much.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you.
Thanks.